Guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I really appreciate you guys taking a little time out of the day to check the video out. And today, back on the water, and I'm going to give you some 101 basic tips on how to work a jig, how to fish a jig. Jig fishing, it's like jerk baits. There's a lot of different variables to it. It's a complicated system, but the main thing you have to learn as a beginner, and I get a lot of questions on this, is like I need some tips on jig fishing, is how to work a jig, how to actually manipulate the bait to generate the strike. So what I'm going to do today in this beginner's 101 series on it, I'm going to show you guys the 3 different ways that you need to learn how to work a jig. And once you learn those 3 ways, it's basically going to take you anywhere you want to fish with a jig and you can catch it. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about, guys, is just the traditional casting a jig or pitching it, that type of stuff on some type of an open area. You can see here, example, this rocky bank right here is a perfect example. Anywhere you have 45-degree angle banks like this and rock, it's a great area for a jig. Anywhere where you figure there's going to be crawdads living, it's a great area for a jig. So this is the first way I work a jig. I'll cast it out to the bank, let it hit the bottom. I want to keep my rod tip high the whole time. That's the big key. Keep your rod tip between 10 and 12 o'clock. And once it hits the bottom, I want to make short hops with it like that. I'll hop at 6 or 12 inches. Boom, and then let it fall back to the bottom. Always watch your line as it's falling. Hop it, snap it a couple times, 6 to 12 inches, let it fall back to the bottom. But guys, here's the big key on jig fishing when you're fishing open water like this, is you need to have that sharp snap most of the time. Now sometimes they want a slower retrieve, like if it's super cold, but most of the time what you want to do, rod tip between 10 to 12 o'clock, lift it up, just a sharp, quick snap, 6 to 12 inches, just like that. That's the first way I work it. Okay, now the second way I work it is dragging a jig. And this is if I'm fishing a football head jig or if I'm fishing a bottom that doesn't have a lot of rock, something a little bit flatter. And what I do with that is I'll make a long cast with it out there like that, let the bait hit the bottom, put your rod tip low to the water. You want that rod tip probably 1 to 3 feet off the bottom, and then just pull it like that back to you about 3 or 4 feet. Take up the slack, and when you're pulling it, make sure you're reeling it. Keep that bait on the bottom, just keep pulling it like that, taking up the slack, pull it back, just dragging that jig along the bottom. And the big key on this, guys, is you want to keep that jig moving all the time, and this is how you can move it all the time. And pay close attention to my reel here, because this is going to show you how to do it. Now watch how I turn this handle. Rod tips low to the water. I'm pulling it like that, the bait's moving forward, but as I'm taking up the slack, I'm also reeling it, so the bait's not really sitting still. It's like moving forward all the time, just a little bit like that. And once in a while, I'll snap it, like a sharp snap like that, and sometimes that will generate the strike. So that's the second technique of dragging. Okay, the third way to fish a jig is how you work it if you're flipping and pitching something. Now take a look at this little lay down here in the water right here. This is like a prime flipping situation. So what I'm wanting to do when I'm pitching and flipping, the way I work it, is I want my jig over an object. So I'm going to pitch it over the limb here, so you guys can see it's over the limb. So it's actually, the line is vertical. Oh, actually there's some fish right there. I wasn't expecting to catch one there, but that's exactly how you do it right there with the jig, guys. That's exactly how it works. Let me see if I can do this again without getting interrupted a little bit here. That was on cue, but okay. Let's get back to this. Back to this again here. Restart this. Okay, so you see the limb right there. You want to flip it over the limb like that. Bait's over the limb, okay. And what you want to do is once it's over the limb like that, you just want to slowly, twitch the rod tip. Just look at my rod tip. I'm just shaking it a little bit like that. Pitch it back in there. Let it always trying to get it. You always want the bait to be over an object. Once it's over an object, just sit there and shake it in one spot. Lift it off the bottom 3 or 4 inches. Sit there and shake it a little bit. Lift it off the bottom a couple, 3 or 4 inches. And I'm just wanting to shake it in one spot like it's quivering a little bit. So anyway, guys, that's the up there. That's the 3 ways that I like to work a jig. It's usually some type of combination of those 3 is going to get you strikes. The main thing that you have to determine is the mood and the personality of the fish when you're casting a jig on open banks, because a lot of times I talked about snapping that rod up 6 to 12 inches. Sometimes they want it harder. Sometimes they want it 2 or 3 feet off the bottom. Sometimes they want it just 2 or 3 inches off the bottom. So you have to mix that up a little bit. That's basic jig fishing manipulation 101. We'll be back. We'll do a lot of different jig fishing tips with color, skirts, line sizes, jigs type, jig profiles, types of areas to fish it in. And we'll cover all that at some point. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Much appreciated. We'll see y'all later.